What if I told you that the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you dream of is the way you think? Because the truth is, success isn't luck. It isn't reserved for the chosen few. It's a mindset, a way of seeing, believing, and showing up in the world. And the top 1%, they don't have different DNA. They have different standards, different focus, and most of all, a different internal story. Today, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to challenge you. I'm here to show you how the elite think and how you can install the same mindset that builds wealth, confidence, freedom, and fulfillment. This isn't theory. This is real. And if you stay with me, if you really listen, by the end of this speech, you will never think the same way again. Most people are so afraid of losing, they never even give themselves a real chance to win. They're playing life like it's a game of not messing up, staying safe, staying small. But let me tell you something. The top 1%, they're not wired like that. They play to win. They set the terms, they take the risks, and they understand that failure is part of the path, not the end of it. You want to know the difference between the average thinker and the peak performer? It's not talent, it's not resources, it's not even timing. It's intention. The top 1% wake up every day with intent. They don't wait for permission. They don't hesitate. They don't shrink to fit someone else's expectations. They build their life like it matters, because it does. And every move they make, every decision, is aligned with a vision bigger than the moment. You see, most people are conditioned to avoid pain. That's their compass. They're driven by fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being judged. But the elite, they've reconditioned their minds to focus on what they want, not what they're afraid of. They've trained their nervous system to handle pressure, to embrace discomfort, and to act anyway, even when it's scary, especially when it's scary. You can't win big if you're trying not to lose. That's survival mode. That's playing small. And you weren't born to play small. But somewhere along the way, society taught you that being safe was being smart, that staying in the middle was the responsible choice. Let me ask you something. When did being average become noble? When did we start celebrating mediocrity like it's some badge of honor? The top 1%, they don't chase average. They demand excellence from themselves. Not because it's easy, but because they know what's at stake. They're not trying to impress people. They're not trying to fit in. They're building lives of significance, and that requires courage. That requires you to lean into uncertainty and trust that your vision is worth the struggle. Here's the truth. You can either be obsessed with your goals or you can be obsessed with your excuses, but you can't have both. You can either be loyal to your future or loyal to your fear. And the top 1%, they made that choice a long time ago. They chose to step into the arena, to swing big, to take the hits, and still keep moving forward. You don't need permission, you need a decision. Stop playing not to lose and start playing like you were meant to win. Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it will set you free. Nobody is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your boss, not the government, not the economy. And that's not bad news, that's the best news you'll ever hear. Because the moment you take full ownership of your life, that's the moment everything changes. That's when the shift happens. That's when you stop waiting and start creating. The top 1%, they don't play the blame game. They don't make excuses. They don't sit around pointing fingers at who did what or how life's not fair. They own it all. The wins, the losses, the detours, the bad breaks. Because when you own the outcome, you own the power. And the second you give that power away to circumstances, you've already lost. You hear people say, I'd be further ahead if I had better support. Or I can't succeed because of how I grew up. Or it's easy for them, they had a head start. And listen, I'm not discounting real pain, real trauma, or real obstacles. We all go through battles. But the top performers, they use that pain. They don't sit in it. They rise from it. They say, yep, that happened, and now I decide what happens next. Responsibility isn't about blame. It's about ownership. And ownership is the most powerful force on earth, because when you own your results, every part of them, you get to change them. Victims wait for change. See, most people are addicted to their stories. They're addicted to the narrative of why it didn't work out, or why they're stuck, or why they never had a chance. That story gives them an identity. And they'd rather hold on to the identity than step into the unknown of transformation. But you can't grow and cling to your excuses at the same time. One has to go. When you talk to someone in the top 1%, you'll hear language like, I'm responsible, that's on me. I didn't execute well enough, I'll fix it. You won't hear whining, you won't hear victim talk, because they know that everything in their life, business, health, relationships, finances, is a direct reflection of what they've allowed, what they've tolerated, and what they've chosen to believe. You want to break through, you want to step into that next level, then you've got to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm done outsourcing my power. I'm done blaming, justifying, explaining. From this moment forward, it's on me. All of it. Because when you own everything, you can change anything. Everyone wants to grow until growth starts to hurt, until it gets uncomfortable, until it stretches who you think you are. That's the moment where most people pull back. They say things like, I'm not ready, or this feels too hard, or maybe I'm just not meant for this. And that's where the top 1% separate themselves, because they lean in. They don't run from discomfort, they chase it. They understand that the greatest version of themselves doesn't live inside what's familiar, it lives beyond it. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It's not automatic. You don't wake up one day and find yourself at the top of your game without deliberately putting yourself in situations that force you to evolve. Most people spend their whole lives trying to avoid discomfort, avoiding hard conversations, avoiding new challenges, avoiding the mirror. But the elite, they walk straight into the fire. Not because they enjoy the burn, but because they know what's on the other side. Let me be real with you. If your goals don't scare you, they're not goals. They're maintenance. And you weren't born to maintain. You were born to expand. But expansion requires tension. It requires pressure. You've got to be willing to outgrow old beliefs, outdated identities, even certain relationships that no longer serve who you're becoming. And that's hard. It's emotional. It's messy, but it's worth it. You look at the most successful people in the world and you might think they have it easy, but what you don't see are the reps they've taken behind the scenes. You don't see the nights they've questioned everything, the moments they failed publicly, the countless times they heard no and kept showing up. What separates them isn't luck, it's that they made growth non-negotiable. They built the habit of doing hard things, and now hard things don't feel so hard anymore. They've trained for it. And you have to understand something. Your comfort zone is not your friend. It's a liar. It whispers that you're safe, that things are fine the way they are, but deep down, you know you're built for more. And that inner voice, that quiet nudge that tells you to go further, to demand more from yourself, that's the real you talking. The rest, that's conditioning. That's fear dressed up as logic. That's a lifetime of settling. The top 1% treat growth like oxygen. They seek it out daily. They read, they reflect, they ask better questions. They surround themselves with people who challenge their thinking. They're not trying to be the smartest person in the room. They're trying to be the most teachable. And that humility, that hunger to learn and adapt and get better, it's the secret weapon. You've got to decide who you want to be 5 years from now and start acting like that person now. Not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, But when it's hard, because the you that you are today won't get you to the life you want tomorrow. That version of you has to die. And the new one, you've got to build it intentionally, relentlessly, unapologetically. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's the invitation. It's the gateway to your next level. And once you learn to welcome it, to dance with it, to see it as a gift, there's nothing you can't become. Because who you are is shaped by what you're willing to go through to grow. One of the biggest traps people fall into is chasing the short game. They get caught in this cycle of instant gratification. Scrolling, reacting, jumping from one thing to the next, constantly looking for the next hit of dopamine. And they wonder why they feel stuck, why they feel like they're always busy, but never really moving forward. You want to know the difference between the top 1% and everybody else? The 1% think long. They think in decades, not days. They're not playing for comfort, they're playing for legacy. We live in a world that praises hustle, but forgets to mention direction. You can be grinding every day and still be headed nowhere if your vision is short term. The top performers understand this. They don't just ask, what do I want today? They ask, who do I want to become? What kind of life am I building? What kind of impact will I leave behind? They're not interested in a quick win that costs them their long-term identity. They're designing a life, not just a moment. The masses get obsessed with results. The elite, they're obsessed with systems, habits, patterns. They know the compound effect is real, that small disciplines done consistently over time create extraordinary outcomes. And here's the crazy part. It's usually the things that look insignificant in the moment that matter most. Waking up when you said you would, reading 10 pages a day, showing up for the workout, following through on your word. That's not sexy, but that's the foundation of greatness. Most people get bored with consistency. They want variety, entertainment, something new. The 1% get addicted to mastery. They understand that excellence isn't doing something extraordinary once. It's doing something ordinary with excellence every single day. That's what builds confidence. That's what builds results that last. You've got to stop thinking like a sprinter and start thinking like a builder. Builders take time, but they create something that endures. A sprinter burns out. A builder stays grounded. And building doesn't mean going slow. It means being strategic. It means aligning every decision with a greater vision, not just your current mood. If you're making decisions based on how you feel right now, you're selling out your future for a feeling. And I promise you, the life you want isn't found in your feelings. It's found in your commitment. You want to be great? Make decisions based on who you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Speak like that person. Think like that person. Train like that person. Act like that person now. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be will start to close. When you study the top 1%, you'll notice they have clarity. They're not confused. They're not trying to do everything. They've said no to 1,000 things so they can say yes to what really matters. Because they're not living for applause, they're living on purpose. Their moves are intentional, strategic, rooted in a long-term game plan that's about becoming someone the world can't ignore. You want a powerful life? You want peace, freedom, impact, wealth? Then play a bigger game. One that's not driven by urgency, but by purpose. Think bigger, think longer, act now, because the decisions you make today are quietly designing the life you'll be living a decade from now.